Welcome to 5 Minute Fridays. My name is Jim Putnam. This will be a little bit different than some of the other 5 Minute Fridays. On 5 Minute Fridays, we just go around and point out something that's going on in the garden right at that time, that's something that you may be needing to think about or needing to do in your garden, or we're doing in our garden at that time. Today's Valentine's Day edition of 5 Minute Friday, we're going to go around and show you some flowers, some open flowers that are already opening up here in middle February in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's one of the things we talk about on the weekly garden planner frequently is about getting out of your own garden and going exploring other people's gardens, other public gardens, and other spaces where you can see interesting things that you may add to your garden, or maybe this thing that doesn't fit really well in your garden, but you get to experience it somewhere else. We're going to start out with the very fragrant Prunus mume above my head here. This is a flowering apricot. There are lots of Prunus that bloom early in the season, so you get plums and cherries and apricots and others. This one is really, it does have a fruit on it, and this is a very, very popular, important, let's call it an important tree in Chinese culture, amongst like bamboo for art and osmanthus fragrans for various things. This is another one that's very, very popular in Chinese culture. It's this welcome to spring plant, right? And then the fruit can be used. They flavor liquors, or various alcohol drinks, and make all kinds of things out of the fruit. So this is, again, a culturally important tree in China. For me, it's always one of those, spring is coming. Occasionally this tree can get damaged. I mean, right, it's blooming February 14th, as we're looking at this, and with open flowers on it like this, it could definitely be damaged. And some years they do get set back quite a bit, but normally, right around the beginning of February, we'll see the first flowers on the Prunus mumes. This is either Peggy Clark or Bonita, and interestingly, I landscaped this garden in the past, not responsible for the English ivy here on the fence, but this is a garden that I spent a lot of time in as landscaping for someone else, and then when I was actually working on my own, I actually did maintenance in this garden as well, right here in the neighborhood. And this Prunus mume has sat on this corner that entire time and has lived a pretty long life. I consider this to be one of the shorter lived trees, ornamental flowering trees overall, but this one has actually lived quite a long life. It's definitely, probably needs some thinning up here in the canopy. You can see some decline in it here and there, so I don't know how much more time it's got left. But again, it's got a sidewalk around it, but it doesn't have any lawn competing with it. So it's been given a pretty big space to occupy over the years and get its roots out into. So it's probably one of the reasons why it's lived a little longer. Planted in a lawn probably would have had a much shorter life, mowing the grass around it and that kind of thing. But Prunus mume, there's a lot of them. We were over at the Raulston yesterday. They have a great collection of Prunus mumes. If you're watching this video, there may still be a little time on the clock if you're in the Raleigh area to get over to the Raulston and see quite a few of these in flower. This is one of our absolute all-time favorite ornamental flowering trees right here. This is Cornus moss. We know Cornus as dogwoods. Cornus Florida is our native dogwood. You may know Cornus elliptica, or that evergreen flowering dogwood we have at the house, which actually goes by several different names. Cornus cusa, lots of different dogwoods out there. Cornus moss is a super early flowering yellow form of dogwood, and the common name for this one is Cornelian cherry. Gets a red fruit on it later that makes sense with the common name. It's in clusters of, like, each individual flower has like 4 petals, and then there's a cluster of flowers together on the ends of each branch, and you can see how colorful it is. One of the other great things about this tree is how beautiful the bark is and the structure of this tree. This one, it's got some crossing branches up in here that you can see right now that probably need to be thinned out a bit. This is another one just like the Prunus mume, where the flowers occur on the tree before it leaves out. So the flowers are super showy. And again, it also allows you to see up into the structure of the tree. But this bark is just incredible. It's really quite beautiful. There have been lots of tagging things. This is at Kilgore Hall at the horticulture department at NC State. This is the building we're in front of right here. Steph, as a hort student, actually tagged a lot of the trees and plants in the front of the horticulture school. And over the years, every certain amount of years, there's another tagging operation. So this one's got a newer tag on it here, but we'll bounce over here to this another plant and see if any of Steph's tags are still hanging on. Here's one of Steph's tags that still remain out here on this dwarf loblolly pine. This dwarf loblolly is a little close to the building, so it's not quite as nice. There's a couple of the other ones here on campus. There's another one on the other side of the brick area that's in more sun, in a fuller space, if the camera will come around. But you can see over there how beautiful one of these dwarf loblolly pines are. Again, this one's a little close to the building and a little bit shaded, but that's one of Steph's tags from the late 90s. They end up embedded in the tree, but they really don't cause any long-term damage. Unfortunately, I think people come along and pull them off or whatever, and then they end up re-tagging them multiple times later with different types of tags that we see out here. But Steph, at some point, a long time ago, went through here and had everything nice and tagged where you could come through here and identify everything. And some of them still are. Some of them remain. We moved over to the Raleigh Rose Garden, and the Raleigh Rose Garden has a great collection of Camellia japonicas. Unfortunately, they are not tagged. There's probably a couple over here that I can make pretty good guesses at, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of named Camellia japonicas. Camellia japonicas tend to bloom, for the most part. There are some fall blooming ones, but for the most part, after we get a few warm days in the late winter. And what will happen is we'll have open flowers on them. You know, they'll get fully open, and then we'll have some sort of freeze that will kind of knock these back. But there's lots of buds, you know, bud right beside it that would open up right after that. So it protects a few, you know, as they open this time of year. Of course, they're evergreen. I mean, we're filming this in February, and they got this really great dark green, rich dark green foliage. Tend to have a little larger leaves than the Camellia sasanquas. And then, of course, there's a lot of hybrid camellias as well and other species. But lots of japonicas here planted in the garden. They've been here a long time. These are we're up on a retaining wall here, so that plant is actually, there's 6 more feet of that plant than what you can see. So this one is somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 feet tall, something like that. So they've been here a long time. Camellias are for the most part, are in no hurry. They'll pick up speed in time, but takes years and years and years to grow a 15-foot tall, decades, to grow a 15-foot tall Camellia japonica in the ground like this. But they just have lots and lots of them planted out here. You're probably hearing some blowers in the background back there. They're over here blowing the leaves out from under the trees. Here's a light pink double that's starting to open, or kind of a semi-double. You can still see the anthers on the interior of the flower there. So not a full double, but lots of buds on them. Over the next month or so, again, they'll get stung by a frost, and then new ones will open. They may go another 6 weeks or so out here flowering. We're filming a witch hazel here in front of an interesting house. This was actually JC Raulston's house that Raulston Arboretum is named after. And Steph actually lived in this house a long time ago. And before that, Tom Foley actually lived in this house, and he was in the video that we did out at a Verde out in San Diego. So Tom, if you're watching this witch hazel was probably planted by JC way back then. This is one of the Asian intermedias. I'm guessing it's Helena or Yelena. I don't know how to, actually I've never known how to pronounce that correctly, but I think it's a cross between the Japanese and a Chinese cultivar, but beautiful orange flowers this time of year, of course. Very, very showy. Only part of the plant has actually opened up already because it's getting enough sunlight through there. The other half of the plant is still budded, but not open yet because it's in a little bit more shade. Of course, it would probably like, you know, it's a good understory ornamental tree, but it'd probably like a little bit more sun than it's in overall. But beautiful early flowering plant. We talked about Edgeworthia in our garden the other day, and as we started on this journey, said I'm not going to talk about Edgeworthia because we talked about it a lot, but I just wanted to point this one out because it's elevated about 6 feet up above the road, so we can look under the flowers as we pass it by. So this is like a perfect placement for this plant that has these nodding flower clusters that point downward. right? Because down here where I'm at, I can actually see the yellow in the flowers. At the house, you know, you're looking down on it, you know, at the height it is right now. You can't really see any of that color in there, but this one is really getting underway, opening up. It'll be super fragrant. It's rained overnight quite a bit, and I'm not getting any fragrance from it this morning. But I just wanted to point out that if you had a raised place like this and you're in the area where we can grow Edgeworthia, elevating it like this really changes, you know, how you can see the flowers as you're passing by. This is one of my all-time favorite camellias. I grew and sold this one like crazy at my nursery because it comes into full flower all at once, really, like almost no other camellia. This is a hybrid camellia. I think it's between reticulata and fraterna. So it's Camellia X, Crimson Candles. And you can see this thing, when it is in full flower, you know, most camellias, again, are gonna, you know, they can come into fullish flower, but they never get kind of covered up in flowers like we would get from like an azalea or something like that. This is about as close as a camellia comes to just covering up in flowers. It has a longer, narrower, a slightly elongated leaf, as opposed to more of a, you know, slightly wider football-shaped leaf that some of the others have. But again, it's one of my favorites, and I could just sell this thing. When I unloaded this one off a truck at the farmer's market or wherever, people couldn't resist this plant when it's just completely covered up in flowers like this. It's still probably a week away or so from all the flowers being open, but it's getting pretty close. We're gonna wrap this Valentine's flower video up with a few plants that Jason Stevens is taking to the pine knot sale this weekend. We came down here to get some, a few native plants. You're gonna see that video in the next few days that he's donated to the new native plant garden. But he's pulled his carts together to take some of the things he's taking to the sale at Pine Knot this weekend. I think that sale's like the next 3 weekends or something. But he's got the Daphne odora in flower. I mean, if you're going to make this is the most unbelievably fragrant, sweet, fragrant plant in the world. Obviously a leafy evergreen. We're shooting this at the beginning of or middle of February, and you see the flowers starting to open on it. And even in the pouring rain, and Steph is filming this from under an umbrella right now, it is incredible fragrance out here. So he's taking some interesting Akuba, and there's Ruscus. Ruscus is a plant we don't talk about a whole lot. Some ground covers. This cast iron plant he has called Super Stripes. Several other things, Florida Sunshine Elysium, and then on this cart, I'll swing around. I can swing around. Some ground covers that he's taken. Pieris, Temple Bells that we talked about like a week or two ago on the channel. Distillium, this video is actually coming up on the channel pretty soon. This is Bayou Bliss Distillium. And I'll talk about Distillium. It's a flowering shrub, but we don't typically think about the flowers being very impressive. But on Bayou Bliss, they actually are pretty impressive. This is like a ground cover Distillium. And then Ogon Spirea, and we're actually taking an Ogon Spirea to put in the main garden. Ogon is one I grew for years. It's a great chartreuse color foliage Spirea. It's just starting to get bloom right now. So he'll have these at the sale. I think I saw some Raulston's Hardy Viburnum he's pulled for the sale. There's some red twig dogwoods for the sale. Some Miss Scarlet Elysium, small, but what a great Elysium that is. So interesting group of plants that he's taken to that sale. So if you're going up to Pine Knot for the Hellebore Festival that they have every year, and I'm getting drowned out here doing this video, so I'm going to wrap this thing up. There's some interesting flowering things around our neighborhood over by NC State and here at Superior Plants at Jason's place. So thank you guys so much for watching.